big ones come through last night. Got some other big ones coming out today. I don't even know some of them because they're happening right now, literally as of the time of this live broadcast or as of the time of this recording. So we're going to be talking about them nonetheless. But I appreciate so much you spending this time with us here. And as we're doing that, we're going to be talking about all manner of things. We're looking at some things a little bit more positively, some other things a little bit maybe not as positively when it comes to their current financial and economic outlook. But in doing so, you recall as a previous listener to Dollars and Cents here that nothing is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Meaning that even though we're going to be talking about these things, we're going to talk about companies. I'll tell you in advance, we're going to be looking at earnings reports. We're going to be talking about are they doing well, they not doing well. And it's very important to be reminded that, again, everybody's situation is unique. We strongly, strongly recommend you reach out to your tax advisor, your financial advisor, or if you'd like to reach out to us, North Main Financial Group, love to hear from you. Love to chat about your particular financial situation and see if there are ways in which we might be able to be helpful to you. Online, you can find us at northmainfinancial.com. That's north like the direction, Main like the street, financial.com. Northmainfinancial.com. We have a contact page on there. Take a look at things there. Leave a phone number or an email address. Let us know the most preferred and desirable ways for us to contact you, again, at northmainfinancial.com. You're also welcome to call us here in the studio. Producer Reese pick up the phone. He's going to answer the phone. He's going to listen to your question. He's definitely going to take it down. He's definitely going to let me know. Can't promise we're going to get it on this show. We got so much that's going on today's show here, so I may not be able to squeeze it in, but if I can, I promise you I'll get it in on a future show. 844-STUDIO-4. That's 844-788-3464 here in the studio. Again, 844-788-3464 here in the studio. Thanks again, folks, for hanging with us here. 4 o'clock on a Thursday. Hot Thursday, boy. I don't know where you are, but holy smokes. It is every bit of July, last day of July here, as of the time of this broadcast or the time of this recording. And it's sweaty. There's no doubt about it. But let's get into some hot earnings reports. All right. You like that segue there? We're talking about some of the big names, some of the ones that are probably the most familiar to you out there. And got to bring them in quick and I got to talk about them in pretty notable ways because they crushed it. They did it again. A lot of you may have heard the moniker out there called the Mag Seven, the Magnificent Seven. Seven of the largest capitalization technology companies out there, and two of them reported here this past week, actually literally yesterday, and both of them just knocked the proverbial cover off the baseball season. I got to use that analogy. Looking at Meta first, Meta, the parent company of Facebook, also of all kinds of things AI related. Knocked it. 20% over expectation, which when you get to a company the size of Meta, now Meta is a multi-trillion-dollar company. They're about $2 trillion company. When you get a company that's that size and they're looking at 15, 18, 20% year over year, not only top line, but bottom line, top line revenue, bottom line growth, that's impressive. I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's only for one quarter. That is amazing. Unless it was due to a real anomaly one-time event, but really it's not. It's really the ROI on their incredible investment into AI infrastructure, and AI returns at this point. So the stock was up as I would say just before I came on the air here, about 12% for the day. 12%, man, big one. Especially when you're talking about a $2 trillion company in Meta. Again, Meta, the parent company of Facebook. Ticker symbol Mary Edward Tom Alpha META. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the debt or the equity when it comes to that company, but boy, did they crush it from a quarterly earnings standpoint. Going to be interesting to see because they were very pronounced, I would say, relative to this whole AI arms race right now. They were very pronounced in terms of the amount of money that they were going to be spending on AI, not just in terms of infrastructure, data center kinds of things, but in terms of talent and specifically going after talent at other companies to bring them in. It must be working at least for this past quarter. And then relative to their go forward kind of expectations, which of course they did share, they're required to as far as Reg FD is concerned to let us know what they're thinking. Boy, they seem confident. And especially when you have a company of that size, you don't want to get too far out over your proverbial skis there because you don't know what's going to be out there. You're very public. You're very much in front of everybody. But boy, did they sound enthusiastic. So it's going to be interesting to see with Meta what's going to happen with them in subsequent quarters. But certainly for this past quarter, not only did they do well, but the market loved it. Let's go on to the next big one in the Mag 7 here. I mean, this one, if you may be of a certain age demographic, which is somewhat close to what mine is, which I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you're watching me on the socials here on the WSIC app, you absolutely can probably tell what age demographic. And if you say that I look like I'm 27 years old, I will thank you for that kind of thing. But this company been around for a long time, and they have done, my opinion, they have done one of the largest corporate pivots in terms of what grew them initially as a company to what is growing them today. And I'm looking at Microsoft, a very ubiquitous name. I mean, it's hard to look at a long list of companies that have greater brand recognition than Microsoft does. Microsoft, ticker symbol Mary Sam Frank Tom, MSFT, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the debt. If my memory serves me correctly, and this was a while ago, I want to say they went public 1985 or pretty close to that they actually became a public company. And they were the operating system for most of we didn't have many laptops, mostly desktops at that time. Their Office suite, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint. I mean, they were Microsoft Outlook. I mean, they were, gosh, it just felt like they were everywhere. And they made a pivot, I would say 10, maybe now 15 years ago, moving from not just being the licensing entity for that software, which is still incredibly used today, but to become a cloud database and AI powerhouse. And boy, did they show it again here this past quarter. Amazing. Again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the debt or the equity, but boy, did they crush it. And when you're talking about big companies, so I just told you the Meta is about a $2 trillion company. Microsoft, $4 trillion. $4 trillion. I remember when the first company got to $1 trillion, and it wasn't all that long ago, just a couple of years ago. And here we are talking about $4 trillion companies. Only two companies in that world right now. You're looking at Microsoft, and you're looking at NVIDIA. Nancy Victor Delta Alpha. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt for NVIDIA either. Two $4 trillion companies. You're talking about monsters here. These are big ones. A lot of folks owning these companies. Again, Microsoft coming out with a very, very good quarter. Again, I don't want to say surprised. I knew that they were shaping up well to have a good quarter. I think it was the extent to which that they really showed not only, again, their investment inside of the AI universe, but also the return on that. And then also what they're talking about in terms of go forward. I think that's what the market liked the most. Not as much of a bounce as Meta had. There was about 4% whenever I came on the air here, but tough to argue with the kind of quarter that they put up. So we're going to be watching them here in subsequent quarters. But before we do that, we're going to take a break and hear from our sponsors. I appreciate so much you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Coming back here in a moment on WSIC.
Make no mistake.
Did you say steak?
We'll be back to talk more finances and food on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Well, a cold front is going to bring some relief in our big-time heat by the time we get to the weekend. In the meantime, we're still pretty hot today. Afternoon high temperatures in the low to mid-90s, partly cloudy, but we'll be watching for scattered thunderstorms as we go into the afternoon and evening. Most of those should start to come to an end as we go into the overnight hours. Temperatures drop off into the mid-70s. Another round of scattered storms on the way Friday before a cool down on the way by the weekend. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. The Piedmont Healthcare Friday After 5 Outdoor Concert Series returns to downtown Statesville. Y2K Kids brings a tribute show to the 2000s of pop and rock music. The band covers artists like Bruno Mars, Kelly Clarkson, Lady Gaga, and more. This free concert will be held on West Broad Street in front of Mitchell Community College beginning at 6 p.m. Beer, wine, soft drinks, and food will be available for purchase beginning at 5. Bring your chairs and enjoy a night of music with Friday After 5 in downtown Statesville. The 500 Club in Statesville presents Member Happy Hour on Friday. Members receive one complimentary drink ticket. Member Happy Hour is every first Friday in the courtyard, weather permitting. Visit the 500 Club online for more information on the Victory Lane Sports Bar and Grill, tea times, and live entertainment. Downtown Mooresville presents a mashup event of music and food on Saturday. The Festival of Food Trucks begins at 5 p.m. along Main Street. Plus, Liberty Park welcomes 38 Special to the amphitheater. Saturday will be big in downtown Mooresville with the Festival of Food Trucks on Main Street and the 38 Special Concert at Liberty Park. Sparks will fly as the metal-mashing 2,000 horsepower machines of the Cookout Monster Truck Bash return to the dirt track at Charlotte for a night of high-flying action. Bring a Cookout Cup for free early access to the pit party beginning at 4:30 p.m. Gates open at 5, while opening ceremonies are at 7. Click on CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for Monster Truck Bash tickets, information on the pit party and ride-alongs, as well as other Speedway events. Stay up to date and find out about local events, job opportunities, real estate information, and more. Visit liveworkplaylkn.com and sign up for the weekly newsletter. That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
It all started with a little meet cute at Paloma in Mooresville, where flavors intertwine and moments become lasting memories. Craft cocktails, elegant small bites that aren't so small. Live music Thursday to Saturday. Visit palomacocktails.com and see what everyone's whispering about.
From market trends to retirement plans, Joshua Dobi has you covered. We're back with more Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second quarter of today's show, Football Reference. Appreciate you hanging with us as we're talking about all things economic financial. We're talking about two of the big monsters there as far as companies are concerned, not only in terms of the ways that they're known, but also in terms of their actual size, the number of entities, people, institutions that actually own the stock. Talking about Meta, talking about Microsoft. I mean, just two huge ones. Both had great quarters. Tough to argue with. A lot of folks expecting the Mag 7 or the Magnificent 7, those big technology companies that so many folks own, that they were going to be cooling down a little bit. That may be true. Google was a little cooler in terms of their expectations, but boy, these two today. And then just before I came online here, Amazon, Alpha Mary, Zulu, Nancy, also was just beginning their earnings report. Sounded pretty positive for them as well. I don't have the data on them at this point, but certainly sounded pretty positive as well. So going to be interesting to see as they and others move through the earnings season and what their projections most importantly are for what comes forward. But before that, we tend to like to talk about the words that begin with the letter F as a part of our program here. Finance, of course. Don't get too carried away in thinking about that. Finance, of course, but then also football. Second quarter. You hear me say it every segment. Every time we come back, I tell you what quarter it is as far as today's show is concerned. It's a blatant football reference. And by the way, in case you're wondering, the kickoff to the first official NFL game, because producer Reese is so good about putting this on the screen in front of me, each and every week, 34 days, 7 hours, 40 minutes, 7 seconds until we get to that first kickoff. And I know you're looking forward to it. Producer Reese also informed me, which I also knew, with our Carolina Panthers, they are beginning training camp later this week. And also true, I know FanFest, the Panthers FanFest is also this weekend as well. So make sure you check that out. If you're a Panthers fan like we are here at WSIC, make sure you check that out and take opportunity to see some of your favorite players and also to enjoy the experience and all that goes with FanFest down there in downtown Charlotte at the Bank of America Stadium. So make sure you're doing that as well. But in talking about, if we're talking about football kinds of things, got to talk about rates. You're saying, what do you mean you got to talk about rates? I got to talk about rates. I absolutely do. I got to squeeze this in somewhere. Got all these questions that have been flying at me this past week with regards to the Federal Reserve. And by the way, another word that begins with F. And talking about their meeting this past week and specifically not so much that they did not cut rates or raise rates for that rather they did not do anything with the overnight lending rate, as was almost completely expected across the market spectrum. But most importantly, what their thoughts were in going forward for the balance of the year, because the futures markets are still anticipating at this point that there is going to be at least one rate cut by the Federal Reserve Board of Governors before the end of this calendar year, and possibly as many as two, meaning if you're looking at probabilities in terms of the intensity of futures contracts purchases. That will be interesting to see. However, what feeds that argument a little bit, for the first time in many years, there was some dissension among the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. And what I mean is there were different votes, meaning there were at least two votes about which I'm aware among the votes of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors who were not in favor of keeping rates the same. Now, The implication was that they were in favor of cutting rates, but that was not the vote. The vote was to keep rates the same. That's what came through, and there were two who were in dissension of that. Very interesting. It happens very rarely. Most of the votes of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors are unanimous, and so to have that kind of dissension is relatively unusual. So that's the kind of thing we're going to be watching. That would seem to indicate for those folks who are anticipating a rate cut later this calendar year that has an increased possibility. I would offer that up as a reasonable assumption at this point that there is an increased possibility for a rate cut a little bit later on in this calendar year. Now, you've heard me say a number of times here on Dollars and Cents that in terms of my opinion, I don't think that the Federal Reserve at this time should cut rates. It's not that I don't want rates lower, folks. I want it for all of you. I mean, all the folks who are trying to get mortgages, car loans, lines of credit, everything that's out there. I want lower rates for you so that it's easier to be able to pay those things back. However, the balance or the natural tension between, let's call it relatively easy access to capital and a healthy economy is something that is constantly in front of us. Meaning that it's not just true that just because rates are lower that everything's better. Not true. Then you run into the possibilities of significant inflation, which we had here a little over 2.5 years ago. One of the reasons why the Federal Reserve increased rates so quickly at that time is because of that. And you run that risk. You run that inflation risk. You run unemployment risk, all that goes along with that. You run those kinds of risks. And so we're watching those kinds of things very closely to see what the Federal Reserve may be doing for the balance of this year. We're going to be it's going to be it's going to be an interesting tell because in addition to that is the overwhelming amount of political pressure that we know is on the Federal Reserve as well. It's no secret that the president in the Oval Office is wanting to have lower interest rates. He has been very upfront in saying that, and it's also no particular mystery, I don't think, that the Federal Reserve Board Governor's president, Jerome Powell, I really should say chair, he's not the president, the chairman, Jerome Powell of the board, is not as interested in hearing what the president has to say about cutting rates. And there needs to be that distance, there needs to be that independence kind of thing. But very interesting to hear that kind of feedback that's been going on. And to see what that may mean for the Federal Reserve as we get towards the end of this year. Because the other factor that's involved, not particularly in terms of the decisions that are made, but also in terms of understanding the evolution of these kinds of positions and what may be coming ahead of us here, is that Jerome Powell's chair term ends in May of next year. May 2026 will be his final month of being the chair of the board. And there has been no secret coming out of the Oval Office that they're lining up and vetting candidates who they will want to raise as potential successors to Jerome Powell in that space of being the chair of the board of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. So we're going to be watching that closely. That will have impact. It'll have impact not necessarily on how everybody's going to vote, but it absolutely is going to have impact on the tenor and the kinds of focus points that the Federal Reserve Board will have in an ongoing kind of way. So we're going to be watching that very closely. But wanted to bring that up, and you're saying, what does that have to do with football? Well, I'll tell you this: anybody that's taken out a loan, probably some football players doing that as well. Line of credit, football players as well. See, I tie this in. I mean, I'll grant you, it may not be the strongest kind of correlation there, but I'm always wrenching these kinds of things to make sure that we could talk about those kinds of things that we like to talk about here on Dollars and Cents, and certainly we're going to continue to do that. But let's keep going, and I'm going to tease this up a little bit because we're going to talk about this in the third quarter of today's show, Football Reference. And we've talked about this the last couple of weeks, but I want you to make sure that you're hanging around into the third quarter and the fourth quarter, frankly, of today's show, talking about all things that have to do with saving for college. And we've talked about this again last several weeks. We're going to be talking about it again, not because we're going to be comprehensive with it, not because we're going to be covering all of the bases that are involved in what it means to save for college, but we're going to be re-emphasizing some points. And unfortunately, I say unfortunately, that we're getting close to the end of the summer, which means the back-to-school time for kids, not only going to primary school, but also going to secondary school, college, trade school, all that goes along with that. And just wanting to offer up some things to think about when it comes to the saving for college experience. So that's coming in the third quarter. But before we do that, I also need to make you aware that that sitting out there as well is also Apple. And when I say Apple, I'm talking about the company Alpha Paul Larry, AAPL, not a recommendation. Buy, sell, or hold. They're also reporting today. I got Amazon, the front end of the Amazon report before I jumped on the air here today, and sounded pretty positive. I'm going to be very interested to see what Apple's reporting as well. Apple's in a little bit of a different space, especially when you're looking at them relative to Amazon, to Meta, to Microsoft, meaning that Apple is much more in the space of hardware. I mean, it used to be true. You can make the argument back in the realm of floppy disks. I know a lot of you have no idea what that means, but back in the realm of floppy disks, that Microsoft was somewhat in the hardware business. And Meta is bouncing into these, these AI glasses. So they're somewhat getting into the hardware business a little bit, but certainly not to the extent that Apple is. I mean, Apple literally has made their bread and butter here over the last 15 years on iPhone, on iPad, on desktop and laptop computers. I mean, that's where you've seen a significant amount, not only of the revenue, but the growth and the profit that Apple has experienced here over the last decade and a half or so. I'm going to be kind of interested. Their stock price, which you may not know, their stock price this year has vastly underperformed the market. Been very interesting to watch, about 15% to the negative before the earnings report. So I don't know if that's still true now. Maybe the after hours is either notably more positive or notably more negative, as sometimes happens after a quarterly earnings report, depending upon how the market takes it. But what is true is that Apple has not kept pace with the markets in the ways that they usually do. Apple is usually a bellwether, and very often the balance of the market is tracking what Apple is doing, but it hasn't been true this year. Now, you can make also reasonable arguments, especially on a technical basis. You can make reasonable arguments to say that Apple needed a period to cool off. Can't disagree with that. They had a couple of great years of growth in terms of price appreciation on the equity, and so that you can make a very reasonable argument saying that they should be in a space of cooling off. And maybe that's indeed what this case is. But still very, very interesting to watch and to see what that means materially for, again, one of the largest and most influential companies on the stock markets today. I'm not just talking about the U.S. here, I'm talking about literally around the world. So it's going to be very interesting to see what that quarterly report is. I'll tell you some of the things I'm watching, or a couple of things rather, that I'm watching when it comes to Apple. One, I mean, how many more iPhones can they sell? And I mean that quite literally. Now, you're going to make the argument, well, they need to turn them over every couple, 3-4 years. Yes, but what we're starting to see with folks who have iPhones is they're holding on to them longer, meaning you're not seeing as much turnover every single cycle when the next iteration of iPhone comes out. That means you're selling less, revenue less, margin and profit, not margins necessarily, but profit definitely being less. So we're watching that very closely to see what is the strength of the sale, specifically on the iPhones. It's true for iPad, but far less in terms of volume sales there. Definitely far less as far as the laptop and desktop aspect of things. It really is a function of the iPhone. So we're going to be watching. You may already know. Like I said, it's happening literally in real time here while I'm on the air. So if you want to call in, 844-STUDIO-4, let me know. We'll talk about it. Not going to make any recommendations. You know that. But I want you to come back. That's one recommendation here on Dollars and Cents at WSIC.
Make no mistake.
Did you say steak?
We'll be back to talk more finances and food on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Well, a cold front is going to bring some relief in our big-time heat by the time we get to the weekend. In the meantime, it's still pretty hot today. Afternoon high temperatures in the low to mid-90s, partly cloudy, but we'll be watching for scattered thunderstorms as we go into the afternoon and evening. Most of those should start to come to an end as we go into the overnight hours. Temperatures drop off into the mid-70s. Another round of scattered storms on the way Friday before a cool down on the way by the weekend. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
It's time to kiss the bricks! The NASCAR Cup Series heads to the legendary Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Brickyard 400 this Sunday, July 27th. Coverage begins at 2 p.m. and every turn, pass, and pit stop is right here on WSIC. Local starts here. Racing lives here.
Have you taken the DESCO Challenge? The people have spoken. DESCO is where the professional goes for electrical supplies.
Hi, my name is Randy. I'm a general contractor, and I always trust the products at DESCO.
See for yourself at DESCOInc.com.
Harrison's is the home of Work Western, and wow! For nearly 30 years, our family has been boots on the ground when it comes to work. We have the largest selection of in-stock boots in the Carolinas and the best workwear brands like Harriet, Carhartt, and Wrangler. Find us on Norman Station Boulevard in Mooresville.
If you need home medical equipment, call Lowry Drug in Statesville. We have everything you need in stock, including portable oxygen concentrators, CPAPs, masks, lift chairs, wheelchairs, scooters, hospital beds, supplies, and anything else you need. Get it when you need it. Check out LowryDrug.com or call 704-873-2247. Lowry Drug, your hometown source since 1959, across from Iredell Memorial Hospital. We are worth the drive. Come see us.
Are you sick of running out of hot water? Whether it's in the middle of a shower or doing dishes, cold water's never fun. Say goodbye to those surprises with a Rinnai tankless water heater from GMV Energy. This energy-efficient propane-powered solution heats water instantly, so you'll never run out again. Plus, it saves money and frees up space. Propane models start at just $295 after rebates. Visit any G&B Energy location or gbenergy.com to learn more.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
This is Sheriff Darren Campbell with the Iredell County Sheriff's Office. Every day, scammers are targeting people right here in our community through phone calls, emails, and text messages, trying to steal your money, your personal information, and even your identity. If someone calls claiming to be from a government, a bank, or even law enforcement demanding money or personal details, stop and think. Legitimate organizations will never ask for gift cards, wire transfers, or your passwords over the phone or email. If something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Hang up, don't click that link, and never share personal information with someone you don't trust. At the Iredell County Sheriff's Office, we're working to protect our community, and we're proud to partner with WSIC because local starts here, and keeping you informed keeps you safe. Stay alert, stay smart, and don't fall for a scam.
Set your child free. Millions of ADHD kids are misunderstood. The book Extinguishing Einstein flips the script with real solutions that help bright minds thrive. This is a must-read for teachers and parents. Get your free copy today by scanning the QR code on our ad in the August issue of Lake Norman Woman magazine.
The best talk all day long.
WSIC.
Local starts here. This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Meta Platforms seems to have a strategy that's working. Its latest earnings beat expectations despite its heavy spending on AI needs. The company's traditional ad business on its platforms, Facebook and Instagram, is helping fuel the investments, with sales expected to come close to $50 billion, exceeding analyst predictions. Microsoft has become the second company in the world to reach a $4 trillion market capitalization after reporting earnings that beat. NVIDIA hit that milestone earlier this month. Microsoft's latest results confirm that it is a leader in the artificial intelligence boom that's lifted mega-cap tech stocks over the last few years. Good news for home buyers. Mortgage rates are down for a second week. Freddie Mac says the average for a 30-year fixed-rate loan is now down to 6.72%. Stocks are mixed. The Dow is down 0.5%, the S&P down 0.1%, while the Nasdaq is up 0.1%. I'm Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio. The button pushing stops here.
WSIC. Local starts here.
From market trends to retirement plans, Joshua Dobi has you covered. We're back with more Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second half of today's show, Football Reference. If you're at 9 to 5 or you got 24 minutes, 10 seconds until you get to that 5 o'clock bell. And I appreciate so much you hanging with us here. I don't take that for granted. Thursdays at 4 o'clock here on WSIC as we're talking about things economic and financial, and we're looking at companies and corporate earnings, and we try to be a little bit anecdotal with it as well. I get it. If I was just reading you the Federal Reserve Board of Governor minutes, I probably, hopefully, would put you to sleep very quickly. So we try to bring in some anecdotal things there. We talk a little football and we talk a little food. We do that. You hear Mamie say that during every break that we talk about food here. We do. First of all, A, we love to eat. B, we just like talking about food, and I try to tie it into the financial aspect of things as well. Certainly when it comes to publicly traded companies. Got to bring out a couple here. I was talking about these with producer Reese during the break, And he was not in favor of either one of these. Got to throw them out there. Some announcements made. This one by Publix supermarkets. So Publix supermarkets, privately held, not a recommendation to in any way because you can't on the public markets, but also not a recommendation relative to the company itself. But they have they've been around for a long time. I want to say the pub subs have been around for 20 years at least. That they've been around. And the pub subs, just short form for Publix subs, those submarine style sandwiches. You go in and you can order whatever you want to be put on them, or you can order ones that already have a pre-configured mix associated with them. So, and they are good. Not that I have met much food that I don't like, but so that's got to be definitely in the mix there. But the pub sub is definitely very, very good. They're coming out with one that the word is they're going to be offering on a year-round basis, which I think is more of a holiday kind of experience. Now, this is just me. This is just my. You may violently disagree with me, and that's fine. 844-STUDIO-4, call in. I'll listen to you. Well, I may not listen to you, but I will certainly take your thoughts into consideration in looking at it. And this is one of their pre-configured ones. Again, for folks who like this kind of thing, it is the Turkey Cranberry Holiday Sub. Now, most importantly, so when you hear turkey, cranberry, and holiday, I mean, when I'm putting all those things together, obviously Thanksgiving derivation there, right? So this is a Thanksgiving kind of experience, but they're offering it all year round, including that turkey and including that cranberry spread on it as well. Producer Reese, you're shaking your head. You're saying this is not for you. No.
I say maybe Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Okay, so you're saying should be limited distribution during the holiday season. That's a fair point. I don't disagree with you there.
I don't think it should exist at all.
Oh my goodness! now you're being violent about it. See, you're saying that this should not be a combination offered to the public.
I think they just went too far with that one.
All right, you know, I see these kinds of things around though. I mean, there are some Thanksgiving theme kinds of things. I've even seen it tells you where I spend my time. I've even seen it at buffet style restaurants where they'll do a Thanksgiving theme for a while. Like they'll have the turkey and the gravy and the mashed potatoes and the whole 9 yards. I mean, so it's there. What I'm saying is there must be a market out there for it. Even though you and I are looking at it going, I don't think so. Maybe around the holidays, but that's about it.
Yeah, I would say for Thanksgiving and Christmas, it should be there.
All right, so
an option.
When the weather gets colder, you're not against it. It's not your favorite, but you're not against it. But
I respect other people's opinions.
Okay,
like if they like it, then they can have it.
Completely agree with that. Completely agree with that. But you're saying when it's 102,
I don't think it's a year-round kind of thing.
All right. When you're saying it's 102 degrees in July, you're saying that's not the kind of thing that you're reaching for. Okay. All right. Well, you've heard the word has been spoken. Or you may think differently, but good to know. If you're one who likes the Thanksgiving experience, you can get it on a pub sub over at Publix here, especially in the Southeast. Let's keep going here. Another food item. This one, publicly traded company, Kraft. Kraft owned by Kraft Heinz Corporation. Ticker symbol Kelly Henry Charlie KHC. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock or the bonds. This is going to be a company, by the way. It's going to be broken up into pieces, most likely. That's coming down the road. You heard us talk about that last week. Not the focus of this particular point of conversation. They still exist as Kraft Heinz today. And I'm talking about has to be one of their most popular items. I don't know this. I haven't looked at the sales figures, but I have to think Kraft macaroni and cheese, if it's not the number one sales item in terms of volume, I'm not talking necessarily in terms of dollars, but in terms of volume, I mean, producer Reese, I mean, you got to agree with that.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
I mean, just the volume that my two daughters in my household have consumed in their lifetime, that alone should put it pretty close to the top of the ring. I mean, as far as the amount, the number of boxes of Kraft macaroni and cheese.
That has to be number one.
I would think so. In terms of volume, it has to be. If it's not there, it's got to be very close.
That's what they're most known for.
Certainly, that's how I know them the most, right? When you think of Kraft, well, I mean, pretty much the next thing you think about is macaroni and cheese, mac and cheese, right? But they came out. They have come out, I should say. So this may be on your supermarket store shelf already. Pizza flavored macaroni and cheese. Now I know that you gave me a strong thumbs down, producer Reese, whenever I brought this up during the break.
But here's what I'll say about it.
Okay, go ahead.
There are a lot of pizza flavored items
exactly where I was going
in stores nowadays.
That is correct.
Pizza flavored Pringles.
Correct.
Pizza flavored
crackers.
Cheese.
There's even pizza flavored cheese I've seen out there. I mean,
so it was only time until someone else jumped on the pizza flavored train.
I agree. And And this one, no, I'm not saying that I would choose it because I do like macaroni and cheese. All right, I don't eat it very often anymore, but I do like macaroni and cheese. I would not reach for the box of pizza flavored macaroni and cheese. I do know that. However, I can see it. That's
Yes.
one where okay, you're talking about cheese on pizza, cheese on macaroni and cheese, and let's say the red sauce flavoring that you have with pizza. That one I could see.
Like
That-
I was telling you with the break,
yes, right?
I'll have them separate.
Interesting. See this was a very interesting point.
I just won't.
You don't want to
Mesh
commingle
them together.
You don't want them all smushed together, having
Yeah.
it on a single fork. Okay. Now I can see that. I can see, and I can see the separate. Actually, I mean, many countless times have had pizza and macaroni and cheese, meaning on separate parts of my plate.
There is cheese on pizza.
That exactly. So that correlation there, very important. I think that's part of the reason why I can see it actually being a viable
Yeah,
possibility.
right.
But yeah, I'm not reaching for it though. That's not the kind of thing that I'm
Maybe
reaching.
it's just like still a texture thing with me.
Could be that. Could mean because pizza's a very different texture than macaroni
Yeah,
and cheese, right?
right.
So, let me ask you another thing about macaroni and cheese. Very, very important, at least in my world. Do you have a particular preference for the pasta shape? Meaning that the traditional Kraft macaroni and cheese has that elbow pasta, right? The tiny little elbow pasta. But I've seen, and I'm not going to get the correct terms here in terms of the style of pasta that it is, but the one that looks like a squiggly thing, it looks like a spring. And I've also seen ones that look like more like rigatoni. I mean, do you have meaning, are you saying yes to certain pastas, but no to other pastas when it comes to your macaroni and
So
cheese?
I'm gonna get attacked for this.
Uh-oh. You
Or
see?
at least some strange looks.
Okay.
I will not eat any other type of mac and cheese besides Kraft.
Interesting. Okay. So you are brand loyal.
Yeah.
But see,
I do not
that's
like
very interesting.
Velveeta.
Okay.
I do not like anything
So
else
they got
besides
Aunt
Kraft.
Annie's. They got a whole bunch of stuff that's sitting out there that's in the mac and cheese category. I know it because it's been in my pantry with my girls eating it. But interesting point there. Okay. See, now, as crazy as it sounds, even though it's all basically made out of the same stuff, I do have preferences about certain pastas shapes as opposed to others. Like the elbows, I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm definitely not going to turn it away. But you get me something like a rigatoni, or you get me something like the squiggly pastas, or I don't know what it is. I really like those a lot.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
But something about it, I just only like Kraft for some reason.
Interesting. See, well, then they got you. Their marketing has worked, producer Reese, on you. So not only are you saying that you like it, but you're saying, I don't want anything else. That is a win when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I don't switch up.
No, but that's what all that marketing's about. They want to hook you with their talons, and they don't want to let you go when it comes to your preference. All they want you to keep buying the macaroni and cheese, but kind of interesting stuff. Interesting, especially when we're looking at publicly traded companies. Also interesting when we're looking at non-publicly traded companies, only because it's the kind of thing that's part of our experience every day. Whether you eat macaroni and cheese or not, whether you have pub subs or not at Publix. And not a recommendation to go out and buy one, but if you do, you probably won't be disappointed if you're at all like me. But that's up to your decision there. All right, we're going to take a break. Getting ready for the fourth quarter here on Dollars and Cents. Hang with us as we come back on WSIC.
Make no mistake,
Did you say steak?
we'll be back to talk more finances and food on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Well, a cold front is going to bring some relief in our big time heat by the time we get to the weekend. In the meantime, we're still pretty hot today. Afternoon high temperatures in the low to mid 90s, partly cloudy, but we'll be watching for scattered thunderstorms as we go into the afternoon and evening. Most of those should start to come to an end as we go into the overnight hours. Temperatures drop off into the mid 70s. Another round of scattered storms on the way Friday before a cool down on the way by the weekend. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. The Piedmont Healthcare Friday After 5 outdoor concert series returns to downtown Statesville. Y2K Kids brings a tribute show to the 2000s of pop and rock music. The band covers artists like Bruno Mars, Kelly Clarkson, Lady Gaga, and more. This free concert will be held on West Broad Street in front of Mitchell Community College beginning at 6 p.m. Beer, wine, soft drinks, and food will be available for purchase beginning at 5. Bring your chairs and enjoy a night of music with Friday After 5 in downtown Statesville. The 500 Club in Statesville presents Member Happy Hour on Friday. Members receive one complimentary drink ticket. Member happy hour is every first Friday in the courtyard, weather permitting. Visit the 500 Club online for more information on the Victory Lane Sports Bar and Grill, tea times, and live entertainment. Downtown Mooresville presents a mashup event of music and food on Saturday. The Festival of Food Trucks begins at 5 p.m. along Main Street. Plus, Liberty Park welcomes 38 Special to the amphitheater. Saturday will be big in downtown Mooresville with the Festival of Food Trucks on Main Street and the 38 Special concert at Liberty Park. Sparks will fly as the metal-mashing 2,000 horsepower machines of the Cookout Monster Truck Bash return to the dirt track at Charlotte for a night of high-flying action. Bring a Cookout Cup for free early access to the pit party beginning at 4:30 p.m. Gates open at 5, while opening ceremonies are at 7. Click on charlottemotorspeedway.com for Monster Truck Bash tickets, information on the pit party and ride-alongs, as well as other Speedway events. Stay up to date and find out about local events, job opportunities, real estate information, and more. Visit liveworkplaylkn.com and sign up for the weekly newsletter. That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
From market trends to retirement plans, Joshua Dobi has you covered. We're back with more Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Fourth quarter of today's show. Football reference. You got 11 minutes, 53 seconds until you get to that 5 o'clock bell. I appreciate you hanging with us here as we do it. We talk about, yes, it's economics, it's financials. We definitely pound that stuff pretty much nonstop here for the obvious reasons. But we also see to make some things anecdotal, a little more fun for you as well. So that's why we're talking football and food and all that good kind of stuff. Got to talk about this one because it applies to so many folks. You heard me tease it up there a little bit in the second quarter of today's show. I said we're going to do it in the third quarter. I got carried away on macaroni and cheese there, so I got to toss it in here to the fourth quarter. And I'm talking about saving for college. And I say that because at North Main Financial, it is a huge, huge item for young families. We talk about it constantly. How do you save for college? What's most important? What are the goals? How much should I set aside? Folks, I'm going to start out by telling you that everybody's situation is unique. There is no, in our opinion, there is no singular way to save for college. And let me say it this way. We have folks who say that, saving for college for our children is our number one financial priority. We're going to save as much money as we absolutely have to be able to make sure that whatever they do, public, private, or otherwise, when it comes to the college experience, that we are able to pay for it with cash. That's fine if that's your desire to do that. We have other folks at the other end of the spectrum who say, you know what, I had to work my way through college. My kids can work their way through college as well if they want to go, and so we're not going to save anything for college. That also is fine. And then there are a whole bunch of folks in the middle who have some kind of combination of those two extremes and say we're going to save some, but we want to have some targets, or we want to have, there are certain things that we can do within our budget that actually makes sense. And so whatever that amount ends up to be, that's what they're going to have for college, and then they're responsible for the rest. So that, again, a lot of different ways of coming at it. There is no, in our opinion, right or wrong way when it comes to saving for the college experience. It's just important from where we sit at North Main Financial, it's just important to define the goal, meaning look at your means of being able to save, look at what that will mean as far as saving for college is concerned, and then decide if that's something that should be part of your overall financial plan. Let me say it this way. For folks who are of more modest financial means, it may not make a whole lot of sense to save for college. Now, before you start bringing out the pitchforks and the torches on me here, just listen to what I'm saying. Because of how the financial aid system works for families of smaller financial means, it actually may make sense not to save for college, meaning that you may qualify for more aid. And I'm not just talking about loans. I'm talking about grants and scholarships. You may qualify for more aid by not saving as much for college. Now, don't get carried away on that, say that nobody should save for college, or Dobi said nobody should save for college. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that for folks who are at a more modest income level and have more modest means in terms of being able to save for college for their children, and especially if they have multiple children. So if you're in a 3 or 4 child or more family on that end of things and you have a relatively modest income, it may not make as much sense. I'm saying that to say it's important that you check out what the means of funding education are, especially if you have a college in mind. Contact their financial aid department. That's literally what they do. They literally figure those things out on behalf of families for the institution that the particular aid department is. And you want to get an idea about, okay, what makes sense? Because you may be looking at this once, twice, maybe 3 times in a lifetime. Those folks are looking at it 3 times before lunch that day. So it's something that to which they give a lot of attention. Also important that you reach out to folks who are maybe a financial advisor, tax advisor, or otherwise, who are concentrating in these kinds of things from a planning standpoint with some regularity. Maybe they can offer up some advice to you about some things to consider. How much should you save? What should your targets be? Is that a function of the ability to save and or the college or university where we would like our child to go? The answer is yes or no to all of that because it's dependent upon your particular financial situation and your plan. So very, very important to give attention to those kinds of things. Very important that you do so, though, in ways which are appropriate for your family. And that's why I want to toss that out there in that way, because sometimes we get carried away, especially on the planning aspect of things. We get carried away with saying, all right, if you want to go to Elon or if you want to go to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, UNCC, then those kinds of things. There's one that may be possible and one isn't possible because of the financial aspect of things. Folks, that may be true. That absolutely may be true in terms of your planning aspect of things, but make sure you do your due diligence first before you just arbitrarily say that that's not possible or is possible relative to your overall financial plan. I know that sounds a little bit wishy-washy. I know that sounds like, well, he's not really giving me a strategy that I can use here. Fair point. I will take that criticism. I'll take it because I've walked through this hundreds of times with clients and their children and their grandchildren. And you're talking about, first of all, gargantuan numbers, especially when you're talking about private school education, gargantuan numbers that are out there. But there are means to address that where you're not just going to be up to your eyeballs in student loan debt for the rest of your living years here on earth. So there are ways to address that. Make sure you take a look at those. Pay attention to what they may be. Ask questions. Strategically, how should you come at it? What should you save? What should you look to gain from the grant and scholarship end of things? And then if you need to take out student loans, what's an appropriate way to do that? Are there things that can allow for deferred interest while you're a student? The answer is yes on that. Are there opportunities to be able to get lower interest rates when it comes to subsidized or unsubsidized loans? Yes, there are ways to do that. Make sure you're taking a look at all those options. Don't just decide from the sidelines about how you're going to come at it. Do your due diligence. It's worth it. And you don't have to believe me on it. I'm talking about because the ramifications are on thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment into the process. So you want to make sure that you're taking a look at that. Make sure you're doing your due diligence and then you're making your decisions for the right reasons. So we're going to visit that again here over the course of the next couple of weeks. I'd like to give you a little slice of that pie, though, pretty much every week right now because, ready or not, we're getting to the end of the summer season. Getting ready to get into school, so just particularly thinking about our folks, specifically who are getting ready for private school and for college as they need to make those tuition payments about that time. All right, let's keep going here. Got to talk about this company as well. Boy, have they appear to be getting re-energized, and I'll say that that's a positive thing in terms of where they were and certainly the amount that they spent to bring in this all-star kind of CEO. I'm looking at you, Starbucks, and I'm looking at Brian Niccol, the current CEO. Brought him over from Chipotle, ticker symbol on Chipotle. Charlie Mary Green, CMG, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the debt or the equity there. A lot of fanfare. I mean, he really did a big turnaround over at Chipotle. You may not have noticed it from the menu standpoint or from the enjoyment if you're one who enjoys Chipotle food, but certainly from an internal financial standpoint, boy, did he change things up there in a positive way. That was the reason why Starbucks brought him over, gave him a big pile of money, big pile of benefits as well. And at least according to this most recent quarterly earnings report, seems to be pushing in that direction. Now, I listened to an interview he did on one of our major news networks, business news networks. He was enthusiastic, but didn't want to say that that everything was fixed yet. And I appreciate that, especially in the position that he occupies there as the CEO at Starbucks. But Brian Niccol has a proven track record, and it's not to say that he can't make mistakes, but certainly he seems to be changing it around. Good quarter for Starbucks. Getting back to some of those things, which a lot of companies, especially big corporations, tend to do periodically. Getting back to basics is a cliche that sometimes is used. Seems like that's what they're doing. Focusing on that more personal interaction, that more personal experience when you enter a Starbucks store. And you may be one who likes or doesn't like Starbucks. This isn't a way to advocate, or I'm not advocating for or against Starbucks. But just because they're so well known, they're a publicly traded company. They had a good earnings report, and they seem to be turning it around in terms of how the company is performing. Definitely worth noting here as we're going through the different companies. All right, I got one more here, and I don't do a whole lot of these when it comes to company news kind of stuff. Because when it comes to IPOs, so initial public offerings, IPOs, that's when a company comes public for the first time, meaning the first day, month, week, month, year that they're publicly traded. They're called an IPO, or a newly public company. And I'm bringing out this one not so much because I'm going to focus on it, but really to say that there appears to be renewed vigor within the IPO market, meaning that there are more companies coming into market, and those companies, at least initially, and all you have to do is take a look at history and note this doesn't hold out very true for very many companies for long, but at least initially there's quite a bit of enthusiasm. I'm looking at you, Figma. That's ticker symbol Frank Indian Green, FIG. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt. Became public today as of the time of this live broadcast, or as of the time of this recording. And boy, did they take off. I mean, literally 3x, a 3x growth. They came out in the low 30s, ended up over $100 a share. That's a little bit unusual. And when I say that's a little bit unusual, it's especially a little bit unusual when we look at it over the course of history and being able to maintain where that is. Not saying that the company's going to crash, not doing that, not saying it's a good hold or a bad hold. You know that. I just said it's not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt on their end of things. But notable because not only has Figma come out and been a hot issue, but there have been several that have come out this year and made for what I would call a relatively enthusiastic IPO market. Now, there are many who would use that, and I would use it as let's call it a lower intensity variable in the algorithm. How is that for a nickel phrase for you there? Basically, a way of saying a low impact item on understanding consumer sentiment, or specifically investor sentiment. When we see the IPO market and there's a lot of enthusiasm for the new issue, the new cool thing, the shiny object, if you will, tends to mean, according to some, that investors are enthusiastic, and that's an indicator for the possibility for either a bull market coming up or for the continuation of a bull market. I don't tend to be there. I think it's more of a minor indicator. I don't get too enthusiastic on IPOs because IPOs are just that, just like the name suggests, initial, right? So that's, Figma, not saying anything bad about them at all, but it's day one. Well, call me in year 1, in year 10, in year 25. And that's when it's going to have more meaning to me. Show me some record of performance. Show me some record of growth. And we were talking about a couple of companies earlier. Again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold either of those, but they have multiple decades. If we're looking at Meta, we're looking at Amazon, we're looking at Microsoft that have come out here with earnings here recently. Chevron, Texaco. I mean, we're looking at those kinds of companies that have had literally decades worth of performance. You get a much better flavor and handle for how they are as a company because they've been held to that standard for an extended period of time. So we'll see what happens, but it's still kind of fun to take a look at that. So we're going to be watching them and the entire market as we burn our way through here the third quarter of this calendar year. My gosh, and I say burn somewhat metaphorically, but how odd it is, it's almost literally burning through it. We're going to be watching that not only through the third quarter, but into the fourth quarter. It's going to be the holidays before you know it. Gosh, things moving too quick here. Certainly this show has moved forward too quick, but I appreciate you spending this quick time with us here. Thursdays at 4 o'clock on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial.
You better than ever before. WSIC, Statesville, W290DK Mooresville, W264CU Statesville.
Have you taken the Desco Challenge? Desco is where the